Okay, Session 8 of Unified English Braille for Vision Professionals is just going to continue right on from where we left off with general symbols in Session 7. We stopped at crosses in Session 7, so alphabetically the next symbol we're going to talk about is currency. The cent sign, they all start with .4, and some of them are derived then from earlier symbols, but they all start with either the letter that they start with, or in the case of the dollar sign, what they look like. So the cent sign is .4c, euro sign is .4e, the French franc sign is .4f, pound sign is .4L. .4n is the Naira sign. Our new dollar sign is .4s, and the yen sign is .4y. We follow print, as always, for the use of currency signs, whether it's spacing or where it appears, it doesn't matter. We are still going to use the .4s. It can't be confused with anything else, so it works very nicely with all sorts of contexts. Notice for this first example, $19.95. We have the dollar sign. We still need that numeric indicator, and the decimal point is still a dot. So a dot is a dot. Again, a warning for the Nemeth people out there. When you're in Nemeth, follow Nemeth rules for the dollar sign. Even though the symbols look the same, they have different rules. So use Nemeth rules when you're in Nemeth, UEB rules when you're in UEB. The US dollar, again, we can .4s. It's not confused with a regular S because it has a .4 in front of it. The dollar rose, and using the dollar sign there all by itself, or using it in substitution for an S in, say, a sales flyer, shop for savings. And again, I think that works out really nicely because it still reads as the words, but it's indicated as a dollar sign with that .4. This gives us the same experience as it does for print readers, whereas in the EBAE code, the dollar sign didn't look like a dollar sign at all. We could possibly use it in words like that, but it certainly messed up the spelling and pronunciation and everything, so it didn't work at all. So this, I think, just works very nicely. Degrees, minutes, and seconds. Degrees, we have a new symbol, as I mentioned in the last session. That's 4-5 and then 2-4-5. And we space that just as we do with print. Minutes, when it's using the prime sign, which is slanted, is going to use dots 2, 3, 5, 6. Seconds uses the double prime, again, when the marks are slanted, two cells of 2, 3, 5, 6. Sometimes the minutes and seconds are shown with non-directional punctuation. So the minutes might be shown with an apostrophe, and the seconds might be shown by a non-directional double quotation mark. We'll talk later about what non-directional means, but just for now, know that it's this dots 6, and then 2, 3, 5, 6. So if we see minutes marked with an apostrophe, then we just show it with an apostrophe, which is .3. And then seconds, we use that special quotation mark, as I just said, .6, and then 2, 3, 5, 6. So if it depends if the prime or minutes and seconds are shown with actual slanted prime signs, or if the marks are straight up and down. Some more examples. 60 degrees with the degree sign separated from the number, then we space it just like we see it. And it's okay for the degree sign to be out by itself in Braille, because it can't be mistaken for anything. 21 degrees Celsius, it's all together, no spaces. That's what we Braille. That C doesn't need a grade 1 indicator because it's right after the number. That degree sign terminates numeric mode, but grade 1 mode is still standing. 70 degrees space Fahrenheit. We have a space there, so now we do need that grade 1 indicator in front of the F. Or if we just have degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit all by itself, we can Braille it just the way we see it. If we have, say, a surveyor's notation, sort of like on a globe or something like that. 33 degrees, 51 minutes, 35.9 seconds south. We braille exactly what we see, and we're going to use the true prime signs there because they're slanted, and it's not spaced because it's not spaced in print. Be aware of when you need your numeric mode indicators. Remember, anytime you have a number, you're going to need it because in this symbol sequence, the numeric mode is terminated often by the degrees symbols and minutes and seconds symbols. We do not need a grade 1 indicator in front of the final S because it has the second symbol on one side and a space on the other. But if we have 151 degrees space, 12 minutes, and the mark is straight up and down, it's an apostrophe, and 40 seconds, that's a double quote there, really. It's straight off the QWERTY keyboard there. It's not a true prime symbol. So we have 151 degrees and space, and of course we need our numeric mode indicator there, and we just use a regular apostrophe for the minutes and the special double quote for 40 seconds, and then a space, so then we do need the grade 1 indicator in front of that E for east. The Ditto Mark, in actuality, again, should be slanted, but often it isn't, but a Ditto Mark is just a Ditto Mark. So we follow the print for the number of Ditto Marks used and try to match the placement if you're transcribing to the print. It's not crucial, but do your best. And then we have something called dot locators. Dot locators help Braille readers orient the fingers to the cell. It's especially helpful when you have things that are only in the lower part of the cell or the right part of the cell. But anytime a new symbol is being introduced, no matter what dots are there, we're going to put a dot locator for mention in front of it. So we have two different kinds of dot locators. And the dot locator for mention is, as I said, for symbols or indicators that are being introduced that will appear later on. So we would put a dot locator in front of a symbol that we are identifying in a symbols list, like on the special symbols page, or in a transcriber's note, or in a publication about Braille, such as the rule book, or for me when I was transcribing this PowerPoint, in all the PowerPoints that I've done so far, would have this dot locator for mention in front of any new symbols that are being identified that will appear later on. So we place the dot locator for mention unspaced before the Braille symbol. So there's no space between the dot locator and the symbol that you're introducing. And because we have this dot locator, we don't need to list the dot numbers for the Braille symbol. So even if it's just in the lower part of the cell or just in the right part of the cell, we do not need to list the dot numbers as we did in the old code. So if we have an italic word indicator, just as an example, say we're telling the Braille reader that the italic word indicator will appear later on, we would list that in a transcriber's note or on the special symbols page, put the dot locator, no space, and then the symbol right after it. A Braille symbol, such as the typeform indicator that I just talked about, or a grade 1 indicator, preceded by the dot locator for mention, does not have its normal effect on the following text. So that means that just because we introduced the, say, italic word indicator, does not mean that the next word then is in italics. The symbol is kind of dormant. We're just introducing it, we're not putting it into use. The other kind of dot locator is called the dot locator for use. And we use that also unspaced before a Braille symbol to assure that it will be physically recognizable, meaning, again, to orient the fingers to where in space that dot is, or that symbol is. A Braille symbol preceded by a dot locator for use does retain its normal effect on text. So in that case, if we were using the dot locator for use to identify grade 1 mode then actually does start right then. We're not introducing the symbol, we're using the symbol, and we're telling the Braille reader notice that this is in the lower part of the cell. So it's actually being it's actually activated. So one example we would use the dot locator for use would be if in a sentence, say we have punctuation all by itself, not a question mark. We've already talked about that, but some other kind of punctuation mark, such as a study on commas. Insert a comma where appropriate, and we actually have the symbol of the comma there. All by itself, it would just be a dot 2, and it would be difficult, if not impossible, to identify which dot that actually is, because it's just hanging out there in space with a space on either side of it. So we have in Braille, insert a comma, the dot locator for use, and then the comma itself, and then where appropriate, period. So now we can easily identify that comma and know where it is in the cell. And again, this is the comma in use in this sentence. It's not being introduced and as something that will come up later. Another use for the dot locator for use is, as I said, if we were going to use grade 1 indicators. So say we have a word search puzzle and all the letters are capitalized. UEB says we have to indicate that. So we don't want to disrupt the format of the puzzle. So we're putting the grade 1 indicators, because these are all letters, not words, and the capital indicators on a line all by themselves so that we don't mess with the formatting. So now they're on lines all by themselves, which means they can be difficult to figure out what they mean. Is that a dot 5, 6, or is it 2, 3, or is it 1, 2, or maybe 4, 5? We don't really know with it just hanging out in space like that. So we put a dot locator for use in front of them, and then we have our grade 1 passage indicator, followed by the capitalized passage indicator, our puzzle, and then again on a line by itself, and again with the dot locator for use there to help identify what these dots are. We have our terminator for capitals and our terminator for grade 1 mode. Feet and inches use the same print symbols in text, and so we're going to use the same Braille symbols. So even though they have different meanings, it doesn't matter because it's the same print symbols, so we're going to use the same Braille symbols. So with feet, if we have a true prime sign, meaning it's slanted, then we have dots 2, 3, 5, 6, just as we did with minutes. And inches, if it's a true double prime slanted, then we have two cells of 2, 3, 5, 6, just as we did for seconds. And therefore, the same note about using the apostrophe and double quotation mark as in print applies in this situation as well. So if feet is shown with just an apostrophe, straight up and down mark, then we can just use a Braille apostrophe. And then the double marks for inches would be a dot 6 and then 2, 3, 5, 6. We have signs in UEB for male and female, or sometimes they're called Venus and Mars. The female sign is dots 4, 5, and then X, and then the male sign is dots 4, 5, Y. And just Braille them as you see them, spaced or not. We have some mathematical signs which are very different than what we've had before. And again, for Nemeth users, use your Nemeth signs when you are in Nemeth, but when you are not in Nemeth, when you are in UEB, use these. And you would use these for literary context. I'll show some examples in a bit. But for now, we have a new plus sign, equal sign, multiplication sign, division sign, minus sign. Those all start with a prefix of dot 5. Then we also have a ratio, which looks like a comma in print, and so therefore we're using a Braille comma. Proportion looks like two commas next to each other, so we're using two Braille commas. Greater than and less than signs look like angle brackets, pointing to the right and pointing to the left, and so that's exactly what we Braille for those. The same symbols that we use for angle brackets are used for greater than and less than. So suppose we're just in an article or some narrative and somebody says, oh, it's as easy as 2 + 2 = 4. So yes, it's a mathematical equation, but it's just in a literary context. So in this case, we might use UEB. And if so, then we're going to space it as we see it in print. Number 2 space, there's our new plus sign, space, number 2 space, new equal sign, space 4. Or if we have word constructions. Those are not true equations, but they have mathematical signs in them. So that's where we would use UEB signs. Corn, space, minus, space. We need that C there because we're in contracted Braille. So then we have dot 5, 2, 3, 5, and that is our new plus sign. B, we need the grade 1 symbol indicator there, new equal sign, space, born. Or if we have a different kind of word construct showing us how the word positron came about, we have positron, and then we have that angle bracket there. So even though it doesn't mean less than in this case, but it still looks the same in print, so we're using the same Braille symbol. So we're using that dot 4 and then 2, 3, 6. And then positive with our parentheses there, new plus sign, and electron with the parentheses included there where we see them. More examples, say it's a phone number and we have a international sign with the plus sign for phone numbers there, and notice we're putting in numeric spaces with a dot 5. So that's one case where we might use a plus sign. Or if we have a map with a scale of 1 to 500,000, that we're using the proportion sign, and that is not something that numeric mode carries through, so we have to start it up again for the 500,000 part of it. Or if we have an analogy, those are very common in academic materials. So we have hand, looks like a colon, so we have that hand is to arm, so we have that as the proportion symbol, I think that is. Then arm, and then our ratio, and then foot, and then proportion, and leg. Music accidentals, again, this is not what you would use if you are in music code. This is what you might use if the symbols appear somehow randomly in just regular narrative text. So we have symbols for the natural sign, flat sign, and sharp sign. So if we have a sentence that's just explaining some things about music, it's not actual music notation, we would use these symbols in that case. So we have a jazz, 251 with hyphens, so we need to start out numeric mode for each of those numbers. Progression in C, need that grade 1 mode symbol indicator there. Minor could be capital D, M, 7. And then we have our flat symbol that terminates numeric mode, so we need numeric mode indicator again for the 5. A spaced hyphen, G, numeric mode 7, our musical code for the sharp sign, and then numeric mode needs to start up again for 9, spaced hyphen, CM, numeric mode 7. The next example, the natural sign on a note cancels the effect of any sharp or flat in the key signature, so then we braille the musical symbols as we see them. The number sign. This is called many different things. It might be called a crosshatch or a hashtag or a pound sign, so or a tic-tac-toe sign. So no matter what we call it, it's still the same symbol. So we're using the same symbol in Braille as we do in print. And this is not changed from what we had before. So if we have number sign 4, we still need that numeric mode indicator for the 4 part of it. All we're doing with the number sign is showing the actual crosshatch sign, but we still need to show the 4 as a numeric mode number. So remember that the number 4 in UEB is considered a unit. It has a root and a prefix, and the prefix is that numeric mode indicator. Apartment, number sign D. So even though it's a letter there, we still use the number sign there for that. We do not need a grade 1 mode indicator because of that number sign. It's not standing alone. A 20-pound bag of flour, it's the same symbol in print, so it's the same symbol in Braille. Or press the pound key on the telephone. It's all by itself, but that's okay because it can't be mistaken for anything else. We have new signs for paragraph and section, and as always, we braille what we see. So we have paragraph number 3. Again, we need that numeric mode indicator there for the 3. Click on the paragraph icon. It's okay standing all by itself. Section D, we don't need a grade 1 mode indicator there because the D is not standing alone. Or if we have subsection, we have 2 section signs there. It's spaced in print after the second section sign, and then we start up our numbers. So subsection 5-15. We have a new percent sign. I think I've mentioned that before. Oh yes, in the listing I did. So this is our new percent sign. That's 46, and then 356, and we space it just as we see it in print. So a 50% increase is brailled without a space, or it's okay to just have it all by itself because it can't be mistaken for anything. .46 doesn't mean italics anymore, so it's being used as part of the prefix of the percent sign. And now we'll talk about shapes for a few screens. In a non-technical material, that means not math or science, list the complete shape symbol without any grade 1 indicator and its meaning on the symbols page or in a transcriber's note. We don't need that grade 1 indicator there because that's not actually part of the shape, and also because it's preceded by that dot locator for mention. But within text, we probably will need a grade 1 indicator in front of it because the shape symbol looks just like a contraction. It looks like ED. We don't want it read as ED, of course, so we will most likely need a grade 1 indicator there. So we have the shape indicator. All shapes start with that same shape indicator. There are a number of prescribed symbols in UEB, so of course we'll use those if we can. But very often, of course, shapes don't have, they're just unique. Maybe they're of an elephant or something like that, so that you don't forget something. And in that case, we have at our disposal a transcriber-defined shape indicator, and that's just a shape indicator preceded by .4. Sometimes we'll need to show where the shape actually ends. Usually a space will end it, but sometimes we need the shape terminator to tell the reader when the shape ends, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So some of those shapes that are predefined in UEB are the regular or equilateral triangle. It's a shape indicator, and then numeric mode indicator 3 because it has 3 sides. A square is shape indicator, numeric indicator 4, and a circle uses a full cell after that shape indicator. So we have, say, a bulleted list. We've already talked about the bullet, and that is being used here there at the first entry. So we have dots 4, 5, 6, and then 2, 5, 6. The next one, though, is a square, and it's a square outline. So that means we're going to use the shape indicator for square, and notice that we do need that grade 1 indicator in front of the shape indicator so that it's not misread as a contraction ED. And then for our next level, we have a circle. It's just a circle outline, not a filled in circle. So it's a grade 1 symbol indicator so that the shape indicator is not misread as a contraction, and the indication for a circle then is a full cell. There are lots of other shapes in other sections. So if the shape symbol is unspaced from a following symbol, that's when we need the shape terminator, because usually, again, a space will terminate it. But if it's immediately followed by something else without a space, we need to show where that space is ending so that the whole symbol sequence isn't read as one whole shape. So in this first example, we have a triangle ABC, and there's a space between the triangle shape and the ABC. So we have a grade 1 mode indicator, shape indicator, numeric indicator, and then 3, and then a space, and then our capitalized word indicator there for ABC. No confusion there where the shape actually ends. But where we have it unspaced, the same example, then we have the grade 1 indicator, shape indicator, numeric indicator 3. If there's no space, we'd read that ABC is still being part of the shape. So we need to have the shape terminator there to say shape is ended, now these are letters. The description within transcriber-defined shapes should be a short series of initials or a single grade 1 word, so no contractions can be used after a shape indicator. So if we had, say, a smiling face, we would use the transcriber-defined indicator, which is .4, and then 1, 2, 4, 6. Notice we do not need the grade 1 indicator in front of these because we already have that .4, and it can't be mistaken for anything else. So we have, because, yeah, it can't be mistaken for anything else. So we have .4, 1, 2, 4, 6, and then SF for smiling face. We can't have the words smiling face because that's 2 words. Nor can we use the ing contraction because that is a contraction. And we need to be in grade 1 mode here. So our option then is to just use SF, some initials. A star, we would have a transcriber-defined symbol there. We could use just an S if we felt that that was enough. Or we might use an ST if we felt the reader might like a little more help in remembering what that stands for. We could even do STAR if we wanted to, spelled out in grade 1 mode, if we thought that would be best for, say, a young reader. Although that gets pretty lengthy for more advanced readers, it might be nice for a young reader. And some more examples of, here we are spelling things out. So we had the transcriber-defined shape indicator with those single words pencils spelled out. Or if we have a pointing finger, again, we can't say pointing finger because that's 2 words, and that would be too long. So we have a transcriber-defined shape indicator and just the word point spelled out in grade 1 mode for that. Much more about shape symbols is listed in that other volume called Guidelines for Technical Material in Part 14, along with some other guidelines about how to use shapes. We'll talk more about that when we talk about technical material in another session. A space is just a space, but we need a little bit of commentary. Follow print for spaces. If in doubt, if you're not sure if there's a space there or not, assume that there is one present. The amount of space present in print is not considered important. That's according to UEB. BANA is coming out with a new formats guidebook, and so we should follow BANA guidelines for formatting. But just for the record, note that UEB says no matter how many print spaces there are, we just use 1 in Braille. But that is according to UEB. It might be different for BANA, so just be aware of that. So I just showed this example here as an example of what UEB says to do. And moving on to subscripts and superscripts. UEB calls anything that is raised above the baseline, with some exceptions, as we've seen, trademark, asterisk, those sorts of things. Anything else is considered to be raised or lowered according to the baseline of text. And we actually have a superscript indicator and a subscript indicator. And those are very nice because we didn't have anything like that in EBAE. Notice, however, of course, those can be read as contractions. So we will need grade 1 indicators for usually if we're in if we're in a contracted Braille mode. So let's look at some examples and as a baseline, and then we'll talk more in depth about it in a later session. So sometimes the name William is written as capital W and then a small lowercase raised m. That is considered superscript position in UEB. So we have capital W, we're in contracted Braille, so that superscript indicator would be read as the contraction IN. We don't want that, so we need that grade 1 indicator there before our superscript indicator, and then just the M. H2O, the 2 is subscript, and again we need that grade 1 indicator there. Then the numeric mode indicator for 2, and then the capital O. So the superscript and subscript symbol indicators only affect the very next symbol. So it's understood that, say, that O is back down to the regular level of text. Only the 2 is subscript. 3 cubic yards. Then we have our just regular 3 YD for yard. we're in contracted Braille, so we need that grade 1 symbol indicator there, and the 3, and then our numeric mode indicator, and then 3. So again, remember that a 3 is a unit. It's a prefix and a root. So we have the grade 1 symbol indicator there for superscript, and then that whole unit, the number 3, is raised to superscript position. And for square meters, same thing. But in this case, we have 4, and then M, and then we don't need the superscript, the grade 1 indicator there, because we're still in grade 1 mode. There aren't any spaces there. So numeric mode is terminated with that M, but grade 1 mode is still in effect. So we don't need the grade 1 symbol indicator there for the superscript position. But we do need to start up numeric mode again for the 2. Vitamin B12, 12 is subscript. So vitamin B, we're in grade 2 or contracted Braille, so we need that grade 1 mode indicator there for the subscript indicator, and then our numeric mode and 12. Born in 1682, period 3 is supposedly a footnote. So we have numeric mode 1682, period. We're still in numeric mode, we're still in grade 1 mode, because a numeric mode carries through the period. So we have our superscript indicator there. We do not need a grade 1 mode indicator there because we're still in grade 1 mode. And then numeric mode has been terminated because of that superscript indicator. So we need to start up numeric mode and then 3. Born in 1982, period C. Now we're talking about a letter. So we have 1982, period. We're still in grade 1 mode because of that numeric indicator there, and no spaces yet. So we have our period, and then the superscript indicator, and then just this letter C. We don't need a grade 1 indicator for that C because we're still in grade 1 mode. The clarion horn, and there's a footnote, say, of number 1 behind the word clarion. So the way we do that in Braille is with that footnote then is 1 and then clarion. So that's our footnote. And in Braille we have the clarion in the text. So we're in grade 2 or contracted Braille. So we need that grade 1 mode indicator there in front of the superscript indicator. Then our number 1 horn, that's the text. Then the actual note shows that same configuration. Grade 1 mode indicator, superscript indicator, numeric mode indicator, 1, clarion. Our tilde is .4 and then 3, 5. Again, this is not the tilde above letters. This is, that's something different that we'll talk about later. A tilde is a tilde no matter what, no matter where, no matter what it means. So we're going to Braille that same Braille sign no matter where we see that, wherever we see that same print sign. So we have head and the tilde, VT, period, to be in charge of, ellipsis. So this might be something from a dictionary, say. So no matter what it means in dictionary speak, it's a tilde to us because that's what's being used in print. So we're just going to Braille the tilde. An economist would write X tilde Y. That tilde means something to an economist. I have no idea what. It doesn't matter what it means. It's a tilde, and so we are just going to Braille it as we see it. Or sometimes in an email, we have tildes meaning sing-song voice, and so that's exactly what we would Braille in our transcription. And then if we get through all those symbols and what's in front of us is still not something that we can find within the UEB code, then we have transcriber-defined symbols. 1, 2, 3, we have 7 of them that we can use. And we use these in order just like we did with the transcriber-defined typeform indicators and something else that I can't remember right now. But the Transcriber-defined symbols then are these. We start with the top and work our way down to the bottom as needed. The first transcriber-defined print symbol, of course, looks like the contraction for .th or the word this, and so we need that grade 1 indicator if we are in contracted Braille. All the others, though, are the standalone indicators or symbols. So these are symbols, not indicators. So these are not root and prefix constructions. We don't need to show the extent of it or anything like that. This is the actual symbol that we would be using. And again, when we are, as transcribers or vision teachers, if we are putting this down, we do not call this for the Braille reader, say, the second transcriber-defined print symbol. That means nothing to the reader. That's transcriber talk. So call it what it is. If you're using it for a star, call it a star. Then we have transcribers note indicators. We've seen these, especially the Braille readers taking this course. So we have the opening transcriber's note indicator and the closing transcriber's note indicator, and those surround any note that we make about changes to the text. There is a symbol for the check mark. It's not in the rule book because it was developed after the rule book was published. So it will be in the new edition, but it's not in the current edition. The check mark is .5 and then .146. So it's a root and prefix construction, just like everything else. So we would just Braille that as we see it. And that's it for our general symbols. Go ahead and see what you can do with Session 8 practice. I hope you have fun with it. It's a little different than what we've had so far because we're doing working with symbols instead of words and numbers. So see what you can do, and I will see you next time for Session 8. Thank you. Excuse me, Session 9. Thank you.